Hi, welcome back to Broken and Brilliant. I'm Carrie O'Toole with Carrie O'Toole Ministries, and today I'm joined by my friend Amy Vantine. Hey, Amy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Amy and I met a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly where, and both of us are like, I can't
How do
remember.
we know each other?
And we would call this trauma brain,
Yeah.
I believe,
Yeah.
because both of us have experienced trauma
Yeah.
in raising traumatized children.
Yep.
And both of our kids, or at least a few of our kids, had reactive attachment disorder. And so I think we met somehow through many of the Facebook groups or something.
I think it was something along those lines, and then recognizing we were in the same state and
Yes.
we have to connect for coffee. And
Yes. So we've had several coffees and gotten to know each other. And I just thought Amy's story would be one that you all would really enjoy hearing. And I mean, it's so funny whenever we talk about our stuff, it's like, is enjoy the right word? I don't know.
I don't know that enjoying hearing it is the right word, but it is fascinating to learn, I think.
Yes, yes. And for anybody out there who is struggling with attachment issues, trauma issues in your family, and if you know anybody who is, this is the podcast for them.
Right. And
Yeah.
sometimes they're not even sure that it is attachment issues because it looks very different.
Yeah. Well, start at your beginning and just give it. I know this could be a huge. We could sit here for 8 hours,
Yeah.
but we're going to try and do this in 25 minutes.
Sure.
And so let's do the condensed version, and we'll dig in where we need to. How's that sound?
Sure. So my husband and I, we have 3 children at home, 3 boys, and one of our boys we adopted when he was little from birth, and we had a lot of struggles with him along the way, and we overcame those, and we really recognized what trauma looks like and how to help children from hard places and how to help them heal and to set them up for better chances of success. So we decided, let's go in and do foster care. And so we decided to do foster care, and our daughter came to us at the age of 7. And
how old were the boys at this time?
so my youngest was 7 as well. So they were 7 months apart, I believe. And then my middle son, this is that trauma brain. I can't exactly remember ages.
Right.
It's funny because you'll pick one thing and you can hold on to that. So
Yeah,
I know
so
my
you go
youngest
from
was
there.
7. So then my middle son, who is also adopted and has a lot of trauma, he must have been 10 maybe, and then my older son would have been 13 or 14.
Okay.
Yeah. And right away we recognized the signs with our daughter that she had experienced a lot of trauma just based on the story, her story of when she came to us, of how she got put into the foster care system was very traumatic in itself. So I knew right away to get her into therapy and to start advocating for her and to meet her needs and to come in with, trauma-informed care and really recognize, she may hoard food, and so let's have food available to her. And it was uncomfortable for her to sleep in a bedroom. She had never had her own bedroom and never had her own bed at the age of 7. So really transitioning her from sleeping on our couch to her own room and helping her to feel comfortable and to come in and meet those traumas. About a year in, her mother ended up committing suicide. And that was just devastating, for our whole family. And that's kind of really when I started to see trauma in our family. And I thought we were all grieving the loss of her mom. Even though my other children had never met her mother, they are very empathetic and could relate to their sister that she just lost her mother, and what does that look like. So I really thought trauma in our home was grief,
It might have been mixed in.
the suicide. And that led us then to moving forward to adopting her, because Originally, we hadn't gone into it planning to adopt. It was strictly to foster. But at that point, knowing, you know, we were her family and she needed us, and who better to advocate for her than us. And we just really went at it and started grief counseling. And we recognized, though, that the behaviors that she had exhibited all along were never subsiding. They were never, we were never moving
Can you talk
forward.
about what some of the behaviors are, so people who don't understand?
Yeah. So the behaviors look very different in our home than they did out in the community.
Yeah, which
And
is
I
very
think
typical.
That is a very typical sign of reactive attachment disorder. And so in our home, in a simple parenting command could set her off. Please pick up your shoes. I would be greeted with, you know, some curse words, and the shoes would come flying at me, and it would turn into a big ordeal. And the type of parents we were, we wouldn't allow that behavior just to go unnoticed. And so we were constantly, you know, let's talk about this, and that's not the respectful way. Let's have a do-over. Let's do timeouts. Now you're grounded. I mean, we tried every parenting style when our basic parenting commands would just set her through the roof. And no matter what parenting style we tried, we were not having any success.
Yeah.
Whether it be sticker charts, groundings, talking with her at eye level, that connecting. And so that led us to seeking more help, more therapy. Maybe she's got fetal alcohol, maybe she's got this, and so more testing, more everything, to just really try to get her the help she needs. And it was pretty clear that everything we were trying, we were just hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
There was
And that is so
no-
frustrating. And for those of you who have been through this, you know,
yes.
because in the adoption community and in the foster community, many people have success.
Yes,
And you could have had success with other children.
right.
And then all of a sudden there's this one, and you do everything that the therapists say. And okay, you work with one therapist for a year.
Right.
And okay, maybe we need to shift. And so it's almost like every time you have to have a graduate degree in the
you're
amount of
shifting to.
learning that you
Yes.
have to. Because when you shift a parenting style, what has to go on in your brain
Oh, absolutely.
for how to do this?
Well, and then in my brain, and then also conveying that to my husband.
Yeah.
Because I'm the researcher. And so I would research, and this is it. This is going to be the one that's going to help and
Right.
allow our family to function. Because as time went on, our family wasn't functioning.
Yeah.
So
and
now
what does that look like?
Well, I have 4 children in the home now, where I have my daughter with the disorder, who is completely reactive to anything that is going on in our home. And then my other children start isolating. There's a term out there called glass children, and that's really essentially what they became. They started isolating, but as a mother...
Explain the glass children, because when I first
Yeah.
heard that, I was like, wait, what
is that?
Yeah.
So the term glass children is really basically the other children in the home who are having the experience of trauma in their house. They don't want to create more issues for the parents, and they don't want to be a problem. So they kind of isolate and hold their needs inside and don't allow their needs to be met, or they don't speak up to what their needs are, because they don't want to put stress on the family when they
Right.
recognize that there's a
Right.
lot of stress.
Right. So it's almost like they're looked through.
They're looked through, their glass, they're invisible. Yeah, you see through them.
Yeah.
But as a mom, I could recognize that my kids were struggling because that was not their personalities. We used to have kids over at our house all the time, the neighborhood kids. Everybody would always come and play at our house, and pretty soon there were no kids coming over, and my children's best friends didn't want to come over. And
You're telling my story and my kids' story as well.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was my home, which once was a safe place for everybody to come and be, and I could provide snacks and everybody could hang out, was now like a horror movie, to be
Yeah.
honest. You never knew when the outbursts were going to happen, and you never knew to the degree they were going to happen. It could just be like that example I gave where the shoes might be thrown at you, or it could be further of holes being punched in the wall, chairs flying. And this is done by a young child. And that's very scary to witness a young child
Totally out of control.
totally out of control. And as a parent, when you have no way of calming them.
Right. In fact, you make it worse.
And that's what I was just going to say. And what I recognized very quickly is the more that I tried to console her or comfort her, the more reactive she became. And that's when I thought, oh my gosh, we really have something going on here. With my adopted son, when he would have behaviors like that, the meeting him where he was at and snuggling him and validating you're angry and I understand that and let's work through that, that worked. That really worked. But nothing would
This
work
would trigger
for
her.
It would trigger her more. And I would have coping skill boxes all through the house for her of when you're having a feeling, pick something from the coping skill box or something to help her calm, and nothing would work. And this would go on hours. So when I say fits, the rages, the fits would happen every day if we didn't have a rage. We would have fits, like tantrums.
Yeah.
2-year-old temper tantrums with a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old. And those could be 10, 12 a day. But then we would have the days where there were rages. And those rages would last hours, 6, 7 hours. So while I am in the room with her raging, throwing things, trying to harm herself, trying to harm me, pulling my hair, spitting in my face, scratching herself, head banging against the wall, putting her fist through the wall. As I'm trying to calm her for hours, my other children are hiding in their room, not knowing what to do, terrified.
And it happens over
and over. It's not just a single incident. It's
No, and when you
over.
can't figure out the key, it's like there's this evasive help, but we can't find it.
Right.
And you know there has to be an answer.
Yeah.
So you search and you search.
Yes.
And so every
and
waking
you're
moment.
searching at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep because you're fearful. Is she going to wake up? Is she going to harm somebody?
And if you fall asleep, you have nightmares.
You
about
have nightmares. Absolutely. And so you're up all night, and while you're up, you're desperate to find how do you help your family.
Yeah.
How do you help your family? So that's when you're searching, looking. How can I find that key?
Because in our hearts and as mothers, there can't not be an answer.
Right. We won't accept that.
No.
We won't accept that for our children.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet, for some of us, there never were answers.
There were never answers.
Yeah.
No.
So where did this all lead?
So eventually it led up to where I recognized we were in severe crisis. And this was with help of therapists. This was with in-home therapy, equine therapy, play therapy, talk therapy, grief therapy, EMDR. This was with everything put into place, medication. But I recognized really we were at a place where, wow, emotionally I was not okay from the day in, the day out, the day in, the day out, that I was either going to harm her or she would harm me.
Yeah.
Or one of my other children would harm her.
And I coach clients just like you and just like me all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember those thoughts too. I remember thinking, one of these days, I won't mean to do it, but in a restraint or in a something, I'm gonna hurt him, or he's gonna throw something or whatever, and I'm gonna end up dead.
Right.
And then what about the other kids?
Right, absolutely. And I kept thinking, we're going to be that news story. We're going to be that news story. Mother of 4, loses it. And which is interesting because, you know, I always thought, I never can quite understand how mothers get to that point where they can abuse their children. I never could. This disorder got me to that point of recognizing the hopelessness of it, the abuse of it. And
yeah, I saw one of the first therapists that I saw. He said, "You feel like you're an abused woman because you are."
yes, it's the
And I'm
abuse
like,
cycle.
How can I be abused by an 8-year-old?
Absolutely. And the concern of that is then there's no support from our community because, like we said earlier, this disorder presents so completely differently outside of the home. And so on the way to school, she could be raging. And, you know, we have a half-hour drive to school, and she could be trying to attack me from the back seat. We would have to make sure that she didn't have shoes, a water bottle, a
Nothing she could
lunchbox,
throw.
pencils, nothing that she could attack her siblings with, nothing that she could throw at me driving, because it was truly a safety issue. And then she could get out and, you know, before before she would leave my car, you know, she's screaming how much she hates us, and she's crying, and she's got hives on her face, and she's clearly dysregulated and not doing well. And she would get out of the car and walk into the school and be fine. I would often park the car and then go in to talk to the teachers and the school counselor and stuff to say, you know, really watch her. It was a rough morning, and she was fine.
I'm like, oh, she
And
was great
so
today.
that part of for my well-being too was not good, because
No,
then
it's crazy
it
making.
feeds that self-talk of it must be something I'm doing wrong, because the school teacher didn't see it. They could see some of the other behaviors that were maybe some symptoms of her trauma, but not what we were living with.
Well, and it makes sense to those of us when we're not in it, because
Right, we can see
it's
it.
the attachment piece that's triggering that, and you are the
That
intimate
nurturing,
person.
yes.
That the intimacy is so terrifying to them.
So
Teachers, they know they're gonna.
They get to go home.
I
at
get to
the
go
end of the
home,
day.
and
Or at
I
the
won't
end
have
of
her
the
next year.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's just for this time, so I can put up with
I
it.
can
But
do it.
mom is there all the
Cannot
time.
handle it. Yeah. Yeah. So when I recognized that we were just really at that breaking point, I recognized for myself that I was under complete stress. We were running a residential treatment facility in our home
Without training,
without
knowing
training,
it.
without breaks,
Yeah, no
without
respite.
breaks. You know, when people work at a residential treatment center, they get to go home after a 6 or 8 hour shift. We weren't having that. It was around the clock, like I said, 6 to 8 hour rages. Her room was empty because everything became a weapon. And so it would be sitting in her room with her where there was just a mattress on the floor, and the walls had holes all over it. And she couldn't have curtains. She couldn't have a heater vent. You know, I walked in one day and the heater vent came flying at me. The door stopped. That became a weapon. And I started recognizing she's reacting to the very existence of me.
Yeah.
She's wanting to hurt me because I am loving her, because I am nurturing her. And I couldn't sustain being in that role 24/7.
Yeah.
And still try to maintain somewhat of a normal life for my other children, of just things that
And
you don't
sanity
even
for
think
yourself.
about, of getting her to therapy, and you know, showering became a chore, eating became a chore. You know, I remember times of being in her room with her and trying to work with her through her rages, and having to urinate and having to hold it for 6 hours because I could not leave her in that moment. And when I recognized that I was at that breaking point, I couldn't imagine where my other children were, because, you know, their brains aren't fully developed either. They're young. At this point, you know, my older two were teenagers and my youngest one was preteen. They don't have the skills to handle
We don't even have the
what
skills.
was going in.
Yeah.
Right. And I recognized I didn't have the skills. How did I expect my other children? And my other son, who's adopted, you know, for me, one of the days was, I remember seeing him just shaking, and he's yelling, "Shut up!" And it just hit me of like,
He can't take
he
this.
can't take any more of this. And what will I do as a mother if he reacts to that? Because we're putting them through so much, and when do you finally snap? And so that's when I realized I can barely take this. My other children can't take this. My daughter can't take this. She is physically attacking me in that flight, fight, or freeze. I mean, I know enough of that from all the research.
Yeah.
I'm going, it's me. It's me. And
Yeah,
if
I
I'm
remember
gonna
there was
be-
one day that I said, for this young man to make it in this world, I can't be in his life.
That is it. It's like a light bulb that goes off. It is truly like a light bulb that's like a, you know, as mothers, we're always searching, how do we fix, how do we fix?
Yeah, and the thing I want to say too is it's not you, Amy.
No.
If I had
It's-
been your daughter's mother,
it would be you.
it would be me.
It's
it was the position of mother in
it's
her
the
life.
caretaker.
Yeah.
Whoever that primary caretaker is. Yeah. And it was that light bulb of this is me.
So
this is me. She's
where
reacting
is
to this love.
child now?
So now she's in the foster care system, which actually, in my mind, I think it enables the disorder, because she can go into a foster home, and as soon as that family starts to nurture or connect or have an expectation of her, the disorder reacts and she can blow placement, and they put her in the next home and the next home. And so that's really sad to me. It's really sad because she's not getting the help that she needs. It's not providing her, I mean, it's providing her disorder with a sense of safety, and I understand how it's helping the disorder.
Well, and in some ways, I wonder, because the trauma level comes down because
Right.
it's not being triggered
Because-
all the time.
and she's not being forced
And
into.
my hope in that is that she can let her brain develop some. It's
Right.
still disordered,
Yeah, it's
but
still disordered.
but maybe it gives her an ability to learn at school because she's not triggered every day at
Right,
school.
yeah.
Maybe it gives her the ability to grow up a little bit so that as she becomes an adult, maybe she'll
Maybe
have
she can-
the desire to get some help.
Maybe that's my
That's the
hope
hope.
as a mom. That's my hope as a mom. That's all I wanted for her. And it was such a difficult decision to have to say, we can't be her parents anymore. We struggled and struggled and struggled with that.
Yes.
Because I thought, well, we'll still advocate and be her parents. We're not going to sever this tie, because one thing that haunts me is I always told her, I'm never going to give up.
Yeah.
I'm never going to give up on you. And when I had to recognize that, because I thought I can still parent, but we'll get her in a group home, we'll get her in a boarding school, we'll do this, and I'll still parent and I'll still advocate for her. But when I had her in a facility that specializes in this disorder, they know it front and back, and this is all they do is help heal these children. And it was there when I was changing my bedding, and I had removed my mattress pad. I don't wash that frequently. I wash my sheets often, but not my mattress pad. And I took my mattress pad off, and I found 29 stab marks on my side of the bed with a knife. 29 stab marks on my side of the bed, the nurturing enemy, me. That's when I realized I can't be in her life. Because I love her so much, I recognize that my relationship with her drove her to put 29 stab marks in my bed. I'm creating her to be violent. I cannot have this relationship with her. And it was the hardest decision as a mother,
Yes.
to have to say, I let go. I often think of mothers who make the decision to put their child up for adoption. And I've always said, I don't understand that. I could never do that. I'm too selfish. I personally never thought I could make that choice.
And here you are.
And that's essentially what I had to do. But my whole life I thought I could never give up one of my children, ever. I could not imagine what that felt like. And with our birth mother of my son, we've had a relationship all his years. And that's one thing I've always admired about her, was that at birth for him, she was able to say, I want him to have a better life. And what does that look like as a mother? And I thought, wow, what courage, what strength. I mean, I just admired her.
Well, you know, I teach classes sometimes, present workshops at adoption conferences. And it's been interesting the last few years because there's been a move to really validate and honor birth parents, and there should be.
Regardless of what their background is.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
even if they are
Absolutely.
drug addicts or homeless or
Absolutely.
whatever, they're still making that hard children so selflessly.
Yes. But I think about parents like us. And whenever I go speak, I always feel like I'm kind of metaphorically put in the back room, off in the corner.
Yeah.
Clients, when they come to my workshops, I always tell them, I'm so sorry you have to be here. You know, it's not like people want to know us.
No.
We get the people when they have nowhere else to go. But I think, isn't it interesting, you and I honor birth parents,
Absolutely.
but in some ways we were that as well.
Right.
After parenting for a number of years and trying everything
Right.
to the point where it almost killed us.
Yes. I didn't birth her.
No.
I didn't birth her, but I put every ounce of love, sweat, tears.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even more so, like even more so than that, into this to try to save her.
Yeah. You know, Amy, this has been so interesting, and I kind of knew your story, but as we're talking here today, this has been, I feel like I'm almost interviewing myself.
Yeah.
And it's very bizarre.
Yeah.
It's very bizarre. And I think that's what we
That's
liked
the
about each other,
connection.
because
Yes.
I know people throughout the
Yes.
country, but getting to sit on the couch with another one,
That gets it
We
so
get it.
closely.
and we don't have to ask a lot of questions or how could you.
Finish
we know.
each other's sentences.
Yes, which I did. Sorry, I
No,
interrupted
no,
a
no,
lot.
I do that too, because it's that connection. You get so excited that somebody else can understand your experience in a world where
Without
nobody
judgment
seems to
and shame.
understand. And that's the key.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of shame that went with having to recognize saving ourselves.
How long
Saving.
ago did this happen in your family? Did she have to be removed?
So it's been 2 years. So
For
it's still
me,
fresh.
it's been 10.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell you that once in a while, that shame still rears up.
Yeah.
And once in a while, the judgment still rears up. And once in a while,
Yeah.
you know, it's not nearly as often. I mean, I'm impressed that you're here because I used to do some speaking, and the first time I went out and tried to share this story, it was like the ugly snot cry. And that was really comfortable for everyone in the audience.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'm ready for this yet.
Yeah. Well, and I've tried to do a lot of work. And then that's kind of where the RAD Advocates piece comes in.
Yes. So we are going to come back because
Yeah.
Amy has started an organization called RAD Advocates.
Yeah.
And so we're going to come back and do a whole other podcast on this. And I'm super excited because you are helping people all over the country.
Yep.
So it's amazing. So thank you so much, Amy, for joining us.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
Such-
I love talking with you.
Such an honor. Thank you for sharing your story. Yeah. And thank you all for joining us. Come back next time and hear more about RAD Advocates with Amy Vantine. And we'll see you next time here on Broken and Brilliant.